She begged the judge to lock her up. "The world needs time," she said. But the judge let her go. She had clearly acted in self-defense, and there was a precedent for that sort of thing. He did, however, sign her up for 6 months' worth of therapy with a psychologist who worked in the strip mall next to the video game arcade. The psychologist was interviewed much later. "I like to see the burnouts walking into the arcade," he said. "It gave me hope, like I'd always have clients." She didn't mention her foster father until the 3rd appointment, and then she began laughing, smashed the psychologist's water glass against the floor, and drew spirals on her forearm with a pen. When she finally calmed down, the psychologist gave her an aspirin and told her it was Xanax. He made her drink a cup of water in 14 tiny sips to stop her enraged hiccups. Once the glass was swept from the floor, she told him about the basement and the way she'd had to barter for her little sister. While she talked, she pulled at her nails. The psychologist noticed, with a jolt of nausea, that her fingernails were all loose. "I never exaggerate," he said later. "I really thought I was going to throw up." And in the same interview, "Of course I tried to convince her not to act, but obviously there came the point where I had to call the police. Harm to oneself or others, you know." Even later, "What was I supposed to do? Preach forgiveness?" 4 months after leaving court with a warning from the judge, acquitted of the charge that she'd attacked her foster father out of malicious intent, she walked into her childhood home with a sheet of corrugated metal tucked under one arm. In a recording from one of the therapy sessions, she tells the psychologist, "When I was a child, I never cared about my body. All I cared about were my eyes. And then when I didn't care about my eyes anymore, I began to care about breathing. And when I stopped worrying about my breath, I reached for my hands. But my hands gave out. So I handed myself over to the imagination. Guess which one was the strongest?" The police picked her up from the curb, where she sat patiently as neighbors rushed out of the house, screaming about the blood. She'd washed her hands and taken off the remains of her fingernails. Her ankles were crossed. Her legs were tucked neatly beneath her skirt. "This is the first and last day of my girlhood," she told the police. The dash camera catches it all. She stands up very slowly and lets a policeman help her into the car like she's being lifted into a carriage. There is a wind blowing hair into her face, but the wind doesn't touch anyone else. It only touches her, gusting out of her opening chest.